They loved it though.
So you had to
Oh, yeah.
open it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, mine's gone
I
now.
kept mine hostage for this
I
whole
just
month.
didn't see you.
I'll have to track down Rob.
My kid, he
That'd be
went
gone.
through it all. Mine's literally almost gone now.
That, audio's already going, video is gonna be coming on here. There we go. We're hoping anyway. So we are live audio, and there we go.
Right, welcome to the April 10th, 2025 Parks, Recreation and Harbor Advisory Committee meeting. We're gonna start with a round of introductions. My name is Kimberly Boucher and I am Chair.
Rachel Willett, Parks and Recreation Director.
Michaela Pelkey,
Member?
member.
John
That's what I
Hyatt,
was trying to think.
John Hyatt, committee member.
Leah McBrady, committee member.
Pamela Cop Anderson, committee member.
All right, like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 13th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Session? No? All that approved. And I guess go next to Talbot Park naming discussion.
Yeah, so recall last month, we talked a little bit about naming another park or amenity honoring Gerald Talbot. Currently, Talbot Park, located on Second Street, has his name and designated Talbot Park. With the order to transfer much of the Talbot Park property for use for the Y project. And one of the requests that the Talbot family had was to find an additional location to recognize Mr. Talbot's contributions to the community. We chatted about it a little bit at our last meeting, and we indicated we would come back to this meeting to have a further discussion and hopefully come to a decision. So that segues into the couple of pictures you have in front of you. Staff, we kind of took a little different tact. So what you have in front of you is what's been referred to for many years as Trail 5. Now, many years ago, and I say many because it was 2008, 2009, the city, Bangor Beautiful, and the Bangor Land Trust developed what's called the Bangor Trails Report, which ultimately was adopted by council. It identified 26 different segments, either currently existing, potentially that could be built, or combining existing trails with some new connections to ultimately increase the trail connectivity around the city. What you have in front of you is what was Trail 11 in the segment 11 in the report, and has been anecdotally referred to as Trail 5. Those of us that are still left around that remember the discussion cannot remember why we landed on Trail 5, but we did. So that trail starts in Cascade Park. If you go to the top of Cascade Park, winds its way through what is called Saxel Park, which is the big open field up on the Dorothea Dix campus. There's actually a management committee set aside for Saxel Park, but anyway, the trail winds its way through there, makes its way to the access road on the Mount Hope Avenue, crosses Mount Hope Avenue, and winds its way through the Eastman Community College campus, and then on its way up Sylvan Road to behind Rangeley Hall. And then I keep saying a couple of years ago, it's probably like 3 or 4 now. The city secured some multi-use trail funding from the state to create a connection that follows the bottom of the slope of the Stillwater northbound off-ramp. So if you indeed get off on Stillwater Avenue, on that northbound off-ramp, you'll see a paved trail at the bottom of the ramp that extends all the way down to the sidewalk on Stillwater Avenue. And then the intent of the Bangor Trails Report was to create that connection. Ultimately, you could get to Drew Lane and find your way over to the trails in Essex Woods. So in theory, you could have quite an excursion from Cascade Park through into Essex Woods. That particular segment that goes from Rangeley Hall to Stillwater, we still refer to that piece as the Stillwater off-ramp connection. The thought and the suggestion for you folks to consider is actually naming that connection Talbot Trail.
The whole thing?
We couldn't do the whole thing because not all of it is city property, but at least the connection that the city maintain, that the city received grant funding for, which is the portion from behind Rangeley Hall at the end of Sylvan Road down to sidewalk on Stillwater Avenue.
And what's it currently called?
Stillwater off-ramp connector.
So,
Definitely better.
So
Yeah.
hopefully improvement.
yeah, so it sounds like a pretty good improvement.
And honestly, I
And
mean,
would that satisfy the?
we're hoping
request?
so, but
Okay.
if we can at least recommend to the family that, and I think so, if you take it in the whole context of the entire report, it's connecting several different pieces of park and open space together. Either city, state, or, well, Eastern Community College is quasi-state. I think it's state, back into Essex Woods. We were getting feedback at the time from Eastern Maine Community College. We did quite a bit of walking, trying to figure out a way to connect the students from Eastern Maine Community College to the other side of the highway to Stillwater Avenue and Hogan Road. At that time, they were using the culvert that goes under the highway. At least that was the urban legend. Or they'd find their way through the woods behind the Eastern Maine Medical Center lab up there. Eastern Maine, man, I think Hudson has a lab up there. Or did
Right, yeah, we had the.
have the lab now?
Had the building, yeah, had it.
So, it's a nice multi-use paved, walking trail that, we keep open year round. We plow it off in the winter time, so it maintains that connection from that side of the highway over and down to Stillwater Avenue. And eventually DOT is going to be replacing those overpasses. So there'll be an opportunity to widen the sidewalk under the overpass. And there is a pedestrian crossing signal at Drew Lane, so. We'd like to,
Yeah, that's fine.
well, you don't see it, Drew Lane. Is the housing office to Water Avenue that's in behind the Kohl's shopping plaza. You don't really see it, you can't really tell from either.
Oh.
And that's where the turnoff is for Buffalo Wild Wings, yeah.
What-
Yes.
How does this?
So if you go down, oh, go ahead.
Well, Drew Lane is, I think, right here, but there's
It's
a
up
way.
here.
So if you go down Drew Lane and then take a left on the Garden Way,
Is that this?
no, that is, looks like the.
Going
Oh,
the
up
other
here,
direction.
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
labeled on this other map.
Yeah, I see it now, but how does that interact with this trail?
So that if you get into the Drew Lane, go down Drew Lane
This,
and then walk
Here we
down
go.
Garden Way, there's a trail head
That one
for
you see
Essex
from the
Woods.
interstate,
Yes,
on the right-hand side,
Yes,
if you're
yes,
going
and
south,
behind the storage.
where the
facility.
kind of the marshy area
Yeah.
is and everything.
oh,
Okay,
you
so
can
that's what
get
you're saying.
there from here.
Right, 'cause you can take the sidewalk
You
that
can
has,
cross here. Okay,
and then
gotcha.
get on
Okay,
through
thank you.
and jump on that, okay.
Side fact, Essex Woods and that bog in particular is one of the best birding destinations in the region, if not state. It is well known in birding circles.
Do we have any concept of I mean, this all sounds great, and I think we should probably recommend that change. I was just curious, do we have any idea of foot traffic and bicycle traffic on that connector?
The only thing I can tell you is anecdotally, anytime I've gone through that, there are people on it and it gets used.
Great.
So certainly, and if we can call some attention to, we did a ribbon cutting for it when we finished it. I think once the sidewalk gets improved on Stillwater, it'll help that even more.
Great.
It's a nice trail.
Yeah, no, it came out really nice. And again, we keep it open year round. So if I hear the sentiment of the group, it is to move forward with the recommendation to name the Stillwater Connection Talbot Trail.
Is there also any opportunity to make it even a little more special, like along that trail, putting like some small benches or
Yeah,
something that could
Yeah, we
be
could do that.
kind
Sounds
of an
like that's a good-
improvement to
that's a
the
good idea.
area.
It's a good idea.
Could have like a plaque or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dedicated to.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
For
nice
sure.
little bench.
Yep,
Bench is
sure.
great.
I'll add that to the recommendation.
Well, do you want benches there? The only thing about benches is like, you know, people end up, people use them. They may use them or they may camp out on them. I mean, depending on what's going, so is it more, is the path supposed to be just kind of a throwaway? And so you want something more just like some sort of pillar or something to acknowledge that it's Talbot Park? Or do you want benches for people to rest and enjoy? Cause what are you looking at if you're sitting on a bench other than to rest? You're looking at.
Those are good points. I mean, so to answer the question about the bench and their uses, we have them all over.
Yeah.
And the use is the use.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Interesting enough, and we'll talk about it in the next item. On the waterfront, we get asked for more benches.
Mm,
So I think it depends on the user. Some users wanna stop and take a break. To answer your question about what you see, you'll see the side of the off-ramp, and then the other side, obviously, you can see what, I mean, it's all wooded. So we can
it's not really
certainly,
for a view.
yeah, no, so, I mean, I don't know, it's that there aren't any there, and I can't remember off the top of my head how long it ended up being, but you can kind of get some context. It does enter on the Rangy Hall side at the end of Sylvan Road.
It's a good walk on your lunch.
Yeah, I have to check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've never been on that,
Neither
on
have I.
that trail before.
But at the very least, yeah, it might draw some attention to it, so.
Yeah.
Well, excellent, I appreciate that, we'll move forward with that.
Okay. Next up is bench naming
Bench
policy.
naming, what a
Hey,
segue,
what
huh?
about that?
So, we wanted to chat with you all for a few minutes tonight. It has recently come up, we actually received two different requests this week. And the golf course has received a request. So up until this point, when we get asked about folks wanting to name a bench, place a bench, memorialize an individual, we essentially put it all on those that are making the request with some feedback from staff about location, making sure it's appropriate, and some assistance with type of bench. Ultimately, when that work is done, they've selected a bench. We've made it incumbent upon the individual to pay for that. And then it essentially becomes a donation back to the city, which then gets accepted, typically through Government Operations Committee, to accept the donation of the bench. But essentially, it's all been put on the individual with very little rules and parameters set around it. Many departments here in the state and around the country, they have a bench naming program. And essentially what it does is it sets obviously criteria where they can go. And what it does is streamline the process for the individual in that, depending upon the bench, the type of bench, you write a fee. That fee goes into a dedicated fund for memorial benches, and then the municipality or the agency goes from there. Many of the departments I looked at will give options of types of benches. Currently, we have had, for example, Fairmount Park, there's 3 different black iron benches along the path there, along the waterfront. There's a couple of different types of granite benches. We had a family a couple of years ago want to put a granite bench out of the city forest. So if you go out in the Arboretum and the path that goes to the trail goes up the landfill cap, you'll see a granite bench out there. We have a small buddy bench at Cascade Park. The request we've had for the golf course specifically, they'd like to place a bench on a tee. So they really vary. I guess what I'd like to have some at least feedback and thoughts. Is a policy and a program make sense to you all? Is it something, it would streamline the process, and I think we treat it much like our event permit policy. Any policy that we institute would have to go to GovOps and probably council for approval. I think we give folks some options, and then the fee would be tied to the cost to purchase the bench. A couple of families, I went ahead and we went ahead and did that for them. And they just paid the city the cost of the bench, so we've kind of done that already. We would manage it much like our event permit policy. We would establish a dedicated account. And would give folks an option in a particular park, an area in a park, similar to what we do now. For example, on the waterfront, they're kind of lined up along the walkway down there. We just received a request yesterday for an additional bench on the waterfront because it doesn't seem like we have enough. So that's kind of where we're at. I know it's kind of a general discussion, but those are the kind of common themes we saw. The fees vary, and there was language about ultimately it's up to staff, the department, location. The other thing that was interesting, I never thought of until I started to read it, there are time certains to each of them. So up to 5 years, up to 10 years, and then it's up to the municipality to reconnect with the donor. Do you want to do a new bench? After 10 years, the city or the municipality reserves the right to remove it. So I found that interesting that many of them had a time certain to them.
Did any of those other municipalities' properties have any language about who could be?
We're making a
Who,
request.
not who could make the request, but who could be memorialized? Like, were there any standards or criteria?
About who?
Yeah,
I didn't see any of
like,
that.
could
I
it,
was wondering that too.
I mean, I can't think of somebody who would want to, you know, who would be someone who would want to memorialize somebody who wasn't worthy or something. I'm not saying that that's a thing, but like, do they have to be like a resident of Bangor or have contributed, or
And we don't do
you
that
could just put
now.
anybody's name on it?
We don't do, so the typical, we've had some, most of them are family members, and it's
Mhm.
family or close family that's making the request.
Yeah.
Many of these you have to apply, and ultimately it's municipality that approves it.
Yeah.
So there's an application process to it. But I don't see anybody limiting. Here's one about the longevity. This one is 5 years and 10 years. But certainly I'm not seeing anything that would indicate a restriction on the individual.
Okay, I'm just curious.
So there's a bench down the waterfront. Wasn't a resident, was local, for his wife. And wanted the Bangor waterfront because he and his wife walk the Bangor waterfront every day.
Yeah.
Or just about every day.
Mhm.
So again, I don't see anything specific limiting who it could be for, but ultimately it would be at the approval of the department.
So I mean, I think it's great to be able to have like a menu of options of like the various types of benches that, so that they're all sort of a similar size and type and, you know, in different areas.
Okay.
But I was also thinking, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily always be a bench, like, could there be a menu of like, if you would like to plant trees or?
So it's funny you say that. Yes, that very well could be, and I did.
Or a bike rack or something.
Yeah, or bike rack, or like, if there's things that
Yeah.
are kind of general needs for these sort of equipment, whatever word you want to use for the city, that could be meaningful for people to donate in honor of somebody. And that there was sort of a menu of options of
Mhm.
what that would be and the cost for those various things.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's just a great way to make it really easy for people
For sure.
to be able to memorialize somebody. And not have to kind of go out and, you know, research a type of bench, but they can kind of look and say, oh, that's a really pretty bench and this is the type of place I'd like to put it in. So they'd have just like some framework around
Right.
the types of things that can be done to memorialize
Maybe
somebody.
even like certain benches that only go to certain areas, so like I know if I want, you know, a larger picnic table, it's only gonna be available in. a Couple spots only, if I want a bench, it's actually more available in, you know, more spots type thing.
You know, and I mean, they do these things even with fundraisers with like laying bricks in
Yeah.
various
Mhm.
areas. And so like, if that's something that eventually for the Parks and Rec Center or down in the waterfront, where you're repaving that area or
Mhm.
something like that. I mean, I think just having just a general menu of options that people can kind of select would be.
Is the idea of this just to kind of offset the cost of the bench, or is it to kind of your point, is it kind of a fundraising, donation, charitable giving?
The intent would be to essentially offset the cost.
Okay,
I didn't envision it being any sort of fundraising mechanism for us. And to some of the suggestions, that falls within some of the examples I've seen. This is Waterford, Connecticut. They do a bench and tree program and offer different types of benches as options. This is Ottawa County Parks and Rec Commission in Michigan. They do bench and table program.
Yeah.
So we can incorporate all of that into some options. So, I think there's all kinds of ways to do it. We were just trying to look for a little better, more efficient mechanism for folks to participate in this kind of thing versus sending them out on their own. In some cases, it's because of a loss. So it's one more thing to do versus, here's what we can do, here's what we have options for you.
Yeah,
Here is the donation for each of those options. For me, on that end of it, I would think that'd be a better, more efficient way to memorialize someone.
I think you wanna make it easy. I mean, I know at the golf course, you've done this a lot, and, you know, some people are like, oh, my husband's a woodworker, and they're gonna make this bench, and then you don't know, a tree may fall on it, or it has to be moved when the mowers come in, and then something happens to the bench. So if we're picking something, a table, a bench, a bike rack, or whatever, that is gonna hold the test of time, and we know the lifespan of it.
Yeah.
This bench should last this long unless there's something
Right.
perilous that happens to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other part, because you don't want these situations where the person feels that they put this bench out and it's been moved around, or it's been damaged, or you didn't know the veneer was gonna come off and now it looks bad, and now you want them to fix it so it looks nicer. So I think the continuity, and I also think the years, I think you need to do that. Is it a 3-year bench? Is it a 5-year bench?
I like
Whatever that
5 to 10
thing
years,
is, yeah.
That makes sense, and then like, hey, you wanna renew it? You can renew it again,
Or
or like
someone
do a
else
new
can do it.
bench,
Yeah,
or
if someone
yeah.
doesn't know that golfer, cause it
Yeah.
was so long ago, and now there's an opportunity like, let's
I
open
like
it
that.
up.
This particular one in Michigan, and it deals specifically with a plaque, but same kind of concept as you're alluding to. If it becomes damaged, if vandalism to a plaque occurs, the plaque sponsor has a choice on whether or not they will replace it at their own expense. The park commission has no responsibility to replace lost or stolen plaques. So certainly include some language, if damage occurs, it
Right,
won't necessarily be upon the municipality to replace it.
the individual would have to do
yeah.
that, yeah.
Think
What
ha-
about, go ahead.
I'll be quick. I think having those options too and some kind of streamlined process would encourage more people to do it, because I
Yeah.
think too many people wanting to put benches, I think would be not a bad
Mhm.
problem. It's a
Right.
good problem, right? And if it was too many, you could say, we're only gonna do 50 a year or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
or whatever the number makes
Yeah.
sense. Because then, I mean, I think any way that we can make places, public places more enjoyable and more inhabitable to people is going to be a win for everyone.
Plus, if someone's
Yeah.
putting a bench or something somewhere, they're gonna visit that area
Right.
more
Yeah.
often anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there
Yeah.
currently, there probably is, but is there currently like an online registry where you could go and like see where things, cause that might be also nice to have it like tied to an online thing where you could see where like someone's memorialized and what they're memorialized on.
This
Like a
ain't-
registry of
yeah, yeah.
memorialization.
Yeah, I think if indeed, and it sounds like we'll keep working on this. That would be one of the other pieces to it, that
Mhm.
indeed we could do that, because we'd have a record of it now.
Right,
I remember where most of them are. We done a tree at Chapin. A couple of trees at Chapin, there's a tree at Fairmount. There's another bench at Broadway. We did for the state's bicentennial.
and that could just make it easier
Yeah.
for people, like if I saw on Facebook, someone posted that, like they had done this for their
Yeah.
son, husband, whatever that passed away, and I wanted to, I could look up to see where it was type thing, you know, all. just little things like that.
The city forest was, we had never had that request out there before. But that was important to them and certainly wasn't an issue, but, yeah, if you're out on the trail in the arboretum, you'll see it near the pond. So, well, good, this is good feedback, we appreciate it, we'll keep moving forward and draft and come up with some, we have a few vendors that we deal with our own benches that try to come up with some options for folks, and when we get the calls, that's often what it is, well, what do I do, what should I do, what should I get? And we kind of leave it back up to them, I think if they, here's some
Yeah.
options.
Right, here's what you can do.
I think if it's not just
Yeah.
like, obviously all benches are really nice, but you're not gonna, you don't wanna have just 70 benches right on the
Right.
waterfront, but
Right.
if there was a variety of things that people could choose from. And there were areas that the city was hoping to sort of
Mhm.
improve in this way, and you had an idea of where those were and the types of things that might improve that area, and just kind of have that listed out as options. I think that'd be.
I appreciate it. No, this is helpful. Thank you. Will work on drafting a policy and ultimately I'll have to get approval from council, but, we'll start with that. I didn't want to get too far before we at least had some discussion about it. So thank you.
Okay. Next up is tennis court usage.
So this is about pickleball. So we get requests, have been getting, we actually fielded another one, a few weeks ago. So far, many communities here in the state and around the country have been putting pickleball lines down on tennis courts. Inherently, that leads to management of that. So here, and recall, we were funded 4 years ago, to reclaim an unused tennis court at Williams Park and instead install 3 pickleball courts. So currently, the city has 3 pickleball courts at Williams Park. They get used on a pretty consistent basis. The first couple of years we had them over there, we had a pretty solid, steady group that would play over there in the winter if it stayed above 30 degrees. Because we would go over and remove as much snow as we could, and then they would finish shoveling so that we wouldn't damage the surface with machines.
Wow.
So yeah, they were getting used year round over there. Since that time, the school department has installed at least 4 at the high school dedicated pickleball courts. And they did dual usage of the 2 tennis courts at Cohen School. So there are actually pickleball lines and tennis court lines, tennis lines at Cohen School. The city, aside from the tennis courts at the high school and the tennis courts I just mentioned at Cohen, the city has 2 lit tennis courts at Hayford Park and 2 tennis courts at Little City Park. That's it. So we've held off putting pickleball lines down on tennis courts.
Is that because of the demand for the tennis courts, so that the tennis players will have their place to be?
It's exactly what we're trying to balance.
Yeah.
Trying to balance. We have 3 dedicated pickleball courts at Williams. There are now the courts at the high school. And then there's a dual use, at Cohen School. So we have so far been keeping the courts at Little City and the courts at Hayford just tennis. I can't tell you on a regular basis how often the tennis courts are used at Little City. The ones at Hayford are used pretty consistently.
Also for pickleball.
What's that?
I've seen people playing pickleball there too.
Well, probably so.
Yeah.
Probably so. But just my observation and my observation is more for tennis than pickleball. So. Wanted to throw that to the table to you all. We will continue unless there's strong sentiment here for us to try lining it would be Little City versus Hayford, because I really, there's a pretty strong tennis group that does play at Hayford. I know there are I see tennis playing there probably more, other than the high school, more often than not. We have made a pretty strong effort with Maine Tennis Association to do a tennis in the parks program, pretty strong program for us. That happens at Hayford. The challenges are will be the conflict of use, potentially. If somebody wants to come up and play tennis at Little City, I don't know how much the courts are used at Little City for tennis on a regular basis.
How many courts at Hayford and how many courts at
Two at Little City
two full courts, okay.
and
How
two,
many new tennis courts did they put in at the high school?
at least 6, if not 8.
Macy, didn't, you used to have
Besides the
indoor-
4 pickleball,
What's that?
besides the
Yeah.
4 pickle, okay, so there's 8 tennis courts at Bangor High plus 4 pickleball.
We have been doing it indoor, so we do a drop-in pickleball on Friday nights at Parks and Rec. We taped down 3 courts on the basketball court. And that's
That's my question.
decently attended, it's pretty consistent. And the last time I was out at Armstrong Tennis, it's a pretty strong pickleball playing going on out there. They have several tournaments, I think, out there. I mean, yes, that's not in Bangor anymore. See how across, I can't remember, but it's right off of Perry Road, Car Road,
Oh. I think it's McCall.
in the Car Road. So,
It definitely seems like pickleball has been growing in population.
sure has.
What's the cost to put additional pickling?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's something we could do in-house.
Okay,
We try, if indeed you collectively want to see us try it, I would try, I don't know that we could actually do floor tape on outside, but we'd want to do something that if indeed it didn't go well, then we could easily remove.
Could there be a sign that said during the hours of blah, 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 whatever to whatever, tennis takes precedence. If no one's playing tennis, you may play pickleball, but if somebody shows up with a tennis racket, you have to yield it back or something during, if we knew that there was a time of day when the tennis was happening more than I mean, I know that sounds like a lot of minutia, but if the worry is conflicting usage, if there's, from 8 to noon, it's this, and from noon to sundown and flip flop on or something, or is that just silly? That way they would,
No
there
idea is
would,
a
that way
silly
nobody
idea.
would have to arm wrestle for it. They would just say, oh, it's 1 PM, no one's using it, I can do
I was gonna
this.
take that from out there. So I think what might be easier to manage is.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what the concern is, and then how to get ahead of that.
So the concern or what you read in our professional alerts that come out, and you can go and find it. News stories across the country, it is the conflict of usage. So if a tennis group shows up, there's a bunch of pickleballers there,
Right.
the pickleballers outnumber the tennis players, and here we go. It'll be interesting at Little City. The other piece that you hear is noise.
That's what I was wondering. Are people complaining ahead of time because they don't want to listen to the pickleball sound? 'Cause
Nobody
that
is complaining, the only.
is a very different sound than listening to someone. play.
It is, interestingly enough, at Williams, and we were straight up with the neighbors are right on that fence, I mean, right there. And they've been great.
Good.
Was fairly candid with them, it's, if we do this, and they were just excited to see the court come back to life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially on that side of the park, because it was kind of it was abandoned court. The issue we've had over there is dog owners using it for
Hmm.
a dog park.
Mhm.
But, so back to your trying to figure out a way to balance it. We could try some dedicated times. The thought we also had was leave one completely tennis and then add a set of pickleball lines to a tennis court and see how that goes.
That might be.
That sounds like a good compromise.
I like that.
Yeah.
and it's not, there's no issue for the tennis players with the line, like it doesn't bother people that there's different lines or anything like that. It's just more that
They're a different color.
different,
You can be different color.
Yeah,
And
'cause there's different lines for pickleball. than
Yeah,
tennis. So is that
pickleball
part of the problem or
courts.
no? Is it just using?
no, I don't think it will be. We can figure that out, try to figure that out. The courts at Williams, we actually put 3 pickleball courts inside the former tennis court.
And remove the tennis lines.
Oh,
Or
no,
there-
it's no,
There's nothing.
it's
there's no
dedicated to
tennis.
pickleball.
Yes,
There are no
yes,
tennis.
yeah.
So the only dedicated tennis courts owned by the city are these 2 right here. The-
Those 2
the-
sets,
the
yeah.
4 courts,
4 courts.
and we've got 7 dedicated pickleball courts. Cohen, you said is dual, right? They can.
Cohen is dual, the school, the pickleball courts at the high school are the school, I mean, they're public, but if, I don't know how they manage those, if they have a tennis match up there. I don't, they must shut them down, I don't recall, I don't know. So true dedicated city pickleball courts, you have 3 at Williams Park.
And 4 dedicated tennis
Tennis
courts.
courts, yep,
And then the dual one at Cohen.
the 2 dual courts
Yeah.
at Cohen.
Yeah, why not just start with putting the lines on one, having one be a multi-use and see
See
how
how it
that
goes.
Yeah.
Like one each at the 2 places with.
I would keep
Yeah.
it,
It's a little city.
I would just do a little, I would
Oh,
try a
okay,
little
just do
city.
Oh,
one at
okay,
the
yeah,
tennis courts.
yeah.
in the city.
The tennis courts at Hayford, especially on a summer morning, and again, we use it for a pretty strong tennis in the parks program over there, so I'd want to keep those dedicated to tennis, but if we try this at Little City, see how it goes. And, monitor it, and
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
okay. We can try that. That's what I have for you all tonight.
Cool. Other than that, any new business anybody wants to bring up?
The only thing I would share with you, we had our first meeting at noon time today of the special committee for the combined park and rec ice arena facility.
Mhm.
So recall the council appointed a special committee to review the feasibility study. Potentially make any adjustments or changes to it with the intent of producing a final report to go back to council by July 10th. It did live stream, so it's probably sitting in the city's YouTube channel somewhere if you wanted to look at it, but I can tell you that it went very well. We also introduced adding fitness back into the equation.
What's in there now? It's ice arena.
It's, so right now, the feasibility study, it's 2 ice sheets, more of a game sheet, and then an extra practice sheet. Dedicated childcare space, dedicated multi-use, multi-generational rooms near the front, and then a 3-court gymnasium along with it. It's all one big building to go on Griffin Road. In addition to that, there was a separate building for our park maintenance and school maintenance. Recall when we talked to the school department stakeholder group, specifically in school staff, getting their maintenance operation, currently they're kind of shoehorned in the back of the high school. And ideally for the school, they could use that as an instructional space, educational space, so. And we share a lot of resources, just by virtue of the fact that we manage and maintain their athletic facilities and maintain all of their outdoor spaces. So there's a lot of shared resourcing going on now, so it made sense to bring them over with us and our parks guys, so.
And the committee said that they wanted to put like a workout gym in there, like a.
So when we met with the consultant initially, many of these park and rec facilities have a fitness component to it. We toured several out in Colorado over the summer and all of them. So the consultant, and there's a revenue generated to that. So at the time, we asked them, there were 2 things we asked them not to include in this plan: aquatics and the fitness, because at the time, we weren't, the Y was still getting their program, their effort off the ground. So we kept it off at the time. Since that time, it was one will complement the other, meaning a public park and rec fitness option complements not only the private sector, but the efforts of the nonprofits. And there's a revenue stream in there to help offset the operating and maintenance of it. So that was introduced back to the group. So it was a good conversation today, meeting went really well. Some good folks there at the table with some expertise that's gonna help us develop this final report and recommendation back to council in July.
Does that group want any participation from anyone from here?
They will ask for that, so we, myself, Deb, Chandra, and Joe Nelson staffed it, and they will be able to ask questions of individuals as they go. They have not scheduled the next meeting yet, so that will certainly, and a public meeting, so if you want to attend or watch it, we'll be live streaming them, so,
When the next one is scheduled, can you let this
Yeah,
group know
for
the
sure.
date and time?
yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, if I'm available, I would be happy to attend.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting.
He is all in.
Yeah.
No, it was very enthusiastic, it was, and I'm not gonna tell you, you can't go watch yourself. Everyone at the table, the sentiment was, it's time.
Hmm.
It's time. People around the table have been to both facilities, or one or the other. And, the consensus was it's time.
Great.
So, very good first meeting. And there's some expertise there that, will help the conversation for sure.
So this is to replace Sawyer, because Sawyer is.
This replaced both the park and rec center. So there's a link to have a summary presentation we did for council on both our BangorParksandRec.com site and on the city site. Give you some background. Let's try you here's kind of newer to the process. So yes, it would replace Sawyer Arena and the park and rec center.
And at the same time, are they talking about what they're gonna do with those areas or facilities, or are they just focusing on?
Focusing on this, we just don't know. Certainly Sawyer Arena, there's not much to repurpose. And when we first did the RFPs, the language was to renovate or replace. And we did parallel separate RFP requests for Sawyer and for the Park and Rec Center. On the off chance, we got a better ice arena consultant. As it turned out, Barry Dunn put together a team that included both. And we're able to do both a study for a combined building. So that was very efficient and helpful and saved us some money. So I don't know what would happen to either place. The property that we're on now down on Main Street, that end of Main Street certainly has some commercial value, I'm sure, with its close proximity to 395. And all in the cross center and the waterfront, so there very well could be some commercial value to that. The building, the consultant found right away to repurpose that, it would be quite an investment, so. And Sawyer's,
They're always like, yeah,
Sawyer's the same, I mean.
Yeah.
We made quite an investment over
but
there.
whether it's selling it or
Yeah.
whatever, I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about maintenance usage and I did,
Yeah.
with a big ice rink like that, is there anything, but if the building is not sound, or is it not, it's not gonna be sound for,
No,
to house much of
No.
anything.
no. So,
And just remind me that the two ice sheets, those are full year ice. It would be full year.
so one would be full year, the second one would have the option to take it out and use it for some sort of other indoor space. Or you could leave it in if we wanted to, and do both sheets.
So based on like whatever the demand was.
Based on
for-
whatever the demand is.
Yeah.
Right now in the area, there's Sawyer Arena seasonally, Alfond. Although Alfond is shut down currently for the renovations they're doing up there. And then Penobscot Ice Arena and Brewer. It'll be interesting long-term, how much longer they'll want to operate Penobscot Ice Arena. That was a family operation. Knew George Bishop at all, that was his passion. And his daughter's trying to make a go of it now, so we'll see how that goes.
And can I just go back to the Talbot parking? So the city's giving Talbot Park space to the Bangor Y. Is this part of their footprint of their new building, or are they gonna be using it for kind of their outdoor use because of their?
The concepts I have seen thus far, it's essentially using it for some outdoor space for their
Okay.
programming, and they're gonna use it more the side that's up against Davis Court at the end of First Street as some parking and a second entrance off of Second Street.
Okay.
Then they'll have another entrance, or is that the primary? I think it's the primary entrance was off Second Street.
Unless there's anything else new we want to add, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anyone?